Pete was reading the evening paper, watching Sylvia out of the corner of his eye. Dinner is almost ready, and she has just returned from the toilet on the first floor. Go on a dime, as she liked to say. She stopped at the dining table that Pete had set for two, straightened the knife, rotated the central flower arrangement, and continued into the kitchen. He smiled. She didn't even realize she did it. The fact is that Sylvia had borderline OCD. She was unaware of her little habits and rituals, but Pete noticed them with amusement. And he wasn't going to tell her. After all, knowledge is power. He also noticed that when she was lying or under pressure, her right thumb would rub between her fingers, as if she was trying to clean something out of the gaps. If he had to find a phrase to describe him, it would be people watcher. He watched everyone, carefully monitoring his own signals. They were married 3 years, comfortable with each other without becoming boring or taking each other for granted, and their sex life was still exciting. He inherited their house from his parents, and he and Sylvia discussed a prenuptial agreement that would prevent her from claiming the house if she ever cheated. But he felt that she would be reluctant to agree and abandoned the idea. They made a pact to be loyal and trust each other, and both hinted at unpleasant consequences if that promise were ever broken. For now, they were settled in their jobs and were planning to have a baby next year. Their sex life was great, so there was no need to think about cheating. Pete began writing a detective novel. He didn't have a writer's block, but he often wrote in fits and starts, and he spent far more time researching and jotting down notes on paper than actually writing on the computer. It would probably never be published, but Pete thought the novel was progressing well. But he lacked a more disciplined approach, so he gave up his evening trips to the pub. They used to have a separate exit rule on Wednesdays. Sylvia went to Emilio's wine bar with her friends, and Pete played darts at the local pub. But recently he had to admit that he wasn't very good at the game, so giving it up wasn't a problem. The team won't really lose him. There will always be someone to take his place. Now he could research any time he wanted and take as many notes as he wanted, but Wednesday would be his writing night. There was still nothing interesting on TV, and the novel took shape. One Wednesday, Sylvia was getting ready to go out and Pete turned off the TV. He will probably write until 11, the time of her return. He couldn't concentrate for more than 4 hours at a time. His serial killer was about to attack his next victim. He opened the novel and started, but immediately stopped. Some notes were upstairs in his jacket pocket. He liked jotting down random ideas on paper as soon as they came to mind rather than fiddling with typing them into his phone. Recently, he was learning how to steal a car. He went up to the bedroom and heard Sylvia humming in the shower. He looked at their bed and almost laughed. Classic OCD. She laid out her clothes on the bed in the order in which she intended to wear them. On the corner closest to the bathroom were white cotton panties. They lay so that the belt was closer to the edge, so that she could immediately put them on. On the right were nude tights, also ready to be put on. Then a white bra, which of course matched the panties, a lemon-colored blouse, and a black pleated skirt. To the right of this, peeking out from under the bed, were black shoes. Finally, a black jacket lay on her pillow. Pete wondered how she would react if he changed the order. Obviously, she would notice, but would she laugh or get angry? Then he had a better idea. He took the panties and turned them inside out. Returning them to their proper place, there was almost no noticeable difference. His mother always said that if you find your underwear is on inside out, you should not change it, otherwise it will be bad luck, should be left as is. Perhaps Sylvia will just wear them, or he will notice a mistake and turn them inside out. But will she think that this is how they came out of the box, or will she guess that he is joking? He took his notes and returned to his novel. His killer was waiting in the stolen car. The parking lot was dimly lit and almost empty. Pete used the nearby rosebush parking lot as a model for this part of the story. It was easier for him to design it if he could imagine the location. His killer was deliberately inconspicuous and mysterious. There was no need to describe someone the police had not yet seen. But he preferred to present locations and minor characters clearly. One day he watched the movie Monster. It was based on the life of Aileen Wuornos, an American easygoing girl turned killer. Peta's story was set in England, where female murderers were quite rare. Off the top of his head, he could only think of Rosemary West and Myra Hindley, so the police were following a completely false trail. Conventional wisdom was that the killer was probably male, but Pete's killer was female. Pete's choice for her next victim was clear. This was a married man who thought he was seducing her, not realizing that he is a hunter, not a hunter. He was based on Mr. Penns Wilcox, a handsome man who ran a nearby gift shop. Also married, he had a reputation as a ladies' man. Pete knew that he was always the last one back to the Rosebush parking lot at the end of the day. The parking lot in his novel was renamed Cherry Tree, and the man who was going to die was Mr. Wilkinson. He had a Ford Mondeo, just like the real Mr. Wilcox. The actual Rosebush parking lot was quite unusual. It served a small supermarket and several small shops. The barrier was lowered at 6 in the morning, and after that you had to pay to enter. It was only a nominal 50 pence, but the guy who ran the newsagent would arrive at 5:50 in the morning to avoid paying. Well, it opened at 6:30. Other people came and went during the day, and the barrier rose again at 6 in the evening. Then it was free until the morning. At 6:30 in the evening, the place was dead as a nail. Shops, including a supermarket, were closed, and there was no nightlife in this part of the city. The lighting was not maintained as the council planned to close it next year and sell it to a developer. Sometimes, after dark, the car would drive to the far end of the parking lot. Then she swayed to the rhythm of youth or adulterers. So Pete's fictional supermarket also closed at 6:30, and Mr. Paul Wilkinson's gift shop shortly after. He opened later in the morning than other shops because no one bought souvenirs early in the morning, so he was usually the last one to leave. In fact, no one had really bought souvenirs during the day, and he was considering selling the business. He confidently walked out to his Ford Mondeo. Pete planned to die under the last remaining lamp in the Cherry parking lot. When Sylvia was ready to go, she would usually come up behind Pete and kiss him goodbye. But today, he stopped mid-sentence and jumped up to walk her to the front door. "What a gentleman," she said. "What's gotten into you?" "Oh, nothing," he replied. "Just feeling romantic." He turned her so that her back was facing the full-length mirror next to the door. Then he kissed her, hugged her tightly, and lifted her skirt from behind. "Nice ass, Mrs. Nightingale," he said, squeezing it and admiring the reflection. "Put me in my place, you brute. Now I have to check my makeup again." And it was lust, not romance. "You're right," he said, grinning. "I was just showing you what lust is. So if some smartass does something like that tonight, you'll know it's time to slap him." "As if. There are no impudent people in Emilio," she objected. The horn sounded outside. "The taxi has arrived," she said and pulled away. Her panties were inside out. The dark seam of the tights separated her cotton bottom perfectly and cut through the Marks and Spencer label that was now on the outside. Sylvia arrived home a little before 11 and said she was exhausted, her word for drunk, and went straight upstairs. Often, during the week, she took sleeping pills. She suffered from insomnia for years. But today she fell asleep as soon as Pete came into the bedroom. There was no sign of clothing. Even when completely drunk, she always hung up her jacket, skirt, and blouse. Her passion for order was automatic and did not usually depend on alcohol. Pete undressed and threw his clothes on the chair next to the bed. After putting on his pajamas, he took his boxers and socks into the bathroom and placed them on the lid of the laundry basket. He brushed his teeth and was about to leave when he noticed her underwear. Sighing, he lifted the lid. He will soon become as obsessive as she is. As he tossed his clothes into the hamper, he noticed her bra, but not panties. Pete shrugged, turned off the bathroom light, and got into bed. He pressed himself close to Sylvia and hugged her. She turned to face him and wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. She smelled like gin and tonic and toothpaste. He couldn't understand the logic. If you're spending an evening at a wine bar, isn't it better to share bottles of wine with your friends? Emilio may be a little pricey, but he has a good deal on whole bottles. Women, he kissed her neck. Sylvia seemed to respond and let out an encouraging. If he acts gently, she may wake up enough for a quickie. She was wearing an old t-shirt that said that Sylvia, against all logic, shot Juar. He ran his hand under her t-shirt and stroked the smooth skin of her back. Then he lowered his hand down. She was still wearing her panties. When she wasn't wearing sexy nightwear, she usually went to bed wearing old cotton shorts or no shorts at all. She had to be pretty drunk to go to bed wearing the same panties she wore when she left. She always maintained that it was unhygienic to keep them on all night. Pete was able to get his hand under them and squeezed her buttock. But she chuckled, turned away from him, and wrapped herself in a blanket. It didn't matter. His mood changed. He felt the panty label before she turned away. And she was on the inside, where she should be, but not where she started. It was always possible that she went to the restroom at the wine bar and noticed the problem. Would she change them? No, take off your shoes, tights and panties only to turn them inside out. Pete didn't think so. It's much more likely that she took off her underwear for another reason and automatically put them on correctly. It doesn't take a genius to guess what the reason could be. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to sleep now, he took her mobile phone from the nightstand and went downstairs. He sat down on the sofa and scrolled through her messages. There were about 40 of them, but 3 stood out. One was from Cynthia, whom he knew vaguely. It was dated late in the evening and said, "Haven't seen you in a while, are you okay?" Sylvia's response was, "It was a little icky, see you soon." Nothing particularly suspicious in itself, except that she wasn't sick. And this overlapped with another suspicious contact, GF, which was completely empty. So if GF was her friend group, she deleted all incoming and outgoing messages. And if Cynthia was one of those friends and hadn't seen Sylvia in a while, maybe none of them had seen her. She probably intended to delete Cynthia's message and her reply, but she got drunk and forgot. Even more intriguing was that G, directly above it, is also empty. Worst case scenario. She skipped a night out with her friends and dated someone named G, and she deleted all messages to and from her friends because there would be a lot of incriminating. You haven't been seen in Emilio for a long time. Also deleted all messages to and from her lover, G. Pete felt that he was close to finding out what happened and when. Perhaps tracking who and where would confirm his suspicions. He returned to bed. On Thursday morning, he was at ease. "Did you have a little too much yesterday?" "Yes, sometimes it happens. Don't worry, I'm fine to go to work." "All the usual group of girls at Emilio?" "Yes." Sylvia was completely calm and clear, but her thumb rubbed between her fingers. She was lying. Pete thought best when he was outside, so that evening he decided to take a walk to the riverbank. "I'll go get some fresh air, Sylv. I'm starting to get a headache." It was a popular spot on a summer evening, and there were a lot of cars parked there. Pete cleared his mind and headed towards the water. He then turned towards the hotel to get back on the road. Time to go home. A Ford Mondeo pulled into the hotel car park. Was there really going to be another murder like in his novel? The female driver parked under the canopy, got out, and placed the heavy suitcase on the ground. Another car pulled up behind the Mondeo, and the doorman offered to drive her while she moved her car. She parked in the spot next to Pete, and he watched her walk back towards the hotel. Another nice ass, he thought, comparing it to Sylvia's. He thought that the doorman had also glanced furtively at her as she entered. Pete looked at the front of the hotel as he turned around. Grand Emperor, GE. Could this be the one on her phone? Didn't Sylvia write down the initials of the hotel where she met her lover instead of his name? That would be tricky. He left work early on Friday and returned to the hotel. This was a business hotel for a week. The riverbank was nice, but it wasn't a tourist town, so it was quiet on the weekend. He entered and noticed someone. The girl at the reception was a temporary barmaid at the Pen and Parchment pub nearby. "Hello, didn't I see you behind the bar at Pen?" She gave him her best smile. "Yes, but I'd rather you didn't talk about it. I only work here on weekdays. My job at the pub is cash in hand." "Don't worry, the IRS is not my friend." "Thank you." How can I help? Yes, I want to make you a small business proposal. Nothing slippery, but it will also be cash in hand. Pete spent 5 minutes convincing the girl that he was an honest man and not some kind of pervert. So, dinner tonight at Don's Diner. Fine. Your name tag says your name is Claire and I'm Pete. At 6 o'clock then. Straight from here and I'll meet you at Den's. This way you won't have to tell me where you live or even give me your phone number. He deliberately chose an inconspicuous place. It was a level above McDonald's, but not by much. Fair, and don't ask to walk me home later. He called Sylvia and said that he would be late, that he would be back before 8, and that he had already eaten. Claire joined him. She took off her uniform and put on a well-washed cotton fleece jacket. This girl was not wealthy and still looked nervous. She put her mobile phone on the table. "Is there a camera on this?" asked Pete. "Yes." He slid something towards her. "Take a photo of me, then this." She relaxed and took a photo. Pete put his driver's license back in his wallet. Den's Diner didn't have a wine list on the menu, but they had a bottle of Budweiser for everyone, which made her feel even more relaxed. After they placed the order, he told her that he was married and suspected that his wife was cheating. She became more attentive and said that her mother cheated and destroyed the family. Claire herself recently got divorced because her husband did the same. Of course, Pete was sad to hear this, but he was secretly glad that she had come over to his side so quickly. "All I really want to know is, do they do this at your hotel? And if so, who is this guy? You understand that I really shouldn't give you this information. I need money and I could lose this job if I get caught. What about this? On Monday, check your reservations for Wednesday night to see if the same name appears, especially if you know he doesn't stay overnight. If so, call me and I'll drop by. Maybe you could just turn the computer screen towards me so I can take a photo. This way, you won't tell me anything directly." He handed her 50 pounds. "I said I would treat you to this dinner. Maybe you'll pay the bill with this. Leave the change, and there will be more if I find my boyfriend." She took the money. "Thank you. I can do this for you, but not on Monday. We are up to our ears with check-ins. Come on Tuesday at lunchtime. I'll show you." Pat was on the counter again. "The gentleman wants to see one of the rooms," Claire explained and took the key. On the way up the stairs, Claire explained. Several years ago, the hotel expanded the parking lot on the side, but there were complaints from neighboring guests. New parking lights were shining into the rooms on that side, so they put floor-to-ceiling blackout curtains on the windows. She opened room 101 and they entered. "See? This layout is at right angles to the others on this wing. Here and the number above, only 2 with windows on this side of the building." Of course, there were long velvet curtains that took up most of the wall. Claire promised to book this room for an unfaithful couple, and she gave Pete good advice about leaving the door unlocked. Wednesday finally arrived and Pete had a plan. He called Sylvia to apologize for being late and arrived at the hotel at 6. He hid the A4 sheet under his jacket. Claire gave him the key and he went up to 101. He hung the cleaning sign on the doorknob. He left the door open, returning the key. Returning to his room, all he could do was wait. Time dragged on, but finally he heard the card key signal. He hid behind the curtain. Keith Starr left the door open. Pete held his breath, confident that his heart must be heard. 5 minutes later, Sylvia came in. She immediately took off all her clothes. Pete watched, fascinated. No caresses in clothes, no whispers. She simply took off everything, including her traditional tights, white bra and panties, and placed them neatly in a pile on the chair. Now Keith was undressing too. Where is the passion? And that's what they did, had sex without affection. Pete wondered if they always acted like this. He then went to the bathroom to clean himself. Returning to the bed, he began again. His fists clenched, soon they will suffer. Pete came back to reality. They were both going to the bathroom. This was his chance. Of course, he heard the sound of water. They took a shower together. "Don't be late," she said. I'd like a couple of gin and tonics before I go, and I won't see you next Wednesday. I'm going to a wine bar. My friends are starting to get suspicious." Pete slipped out of his hiding place, tiptoed to the door, and walked out. He knew there were no security cameras in the corridor. In the lobby, he waited until the two late-shift girls were busy, then left through the main entrance, unnoticed. He sent Claire a quick text message. "Everything is over. Don't worry, they're both fine." Pete avoided sex with Sylvia for the next few days. He was not the owner, but he felt that his territory was being invaded. He relented over the weekend, and they had sex. But it seemed mechanical. Sylvia didn't seem to notice. Perhaps she was thinking about Keith. He had vague concerns about contracting and sty. It was finally Wednesday again, and he was ready. He came home in time to get everything ready. He crushed one of her regular sleeping pills into a glass of wine and hid it in a tall cabinet. He checked a pair of latex gloves and a long hippie wig that he had once worn to a 60s party. When Sylvia returned home, he poured 2 glasses of a modest red wine and thrust one into her hand as she entered. "What kind of holiday?" she asked. "Big promotion at work," he lied. "We will become rich." "Wow, well done." "Thank you. There will be a big bonus too." She bought salmon steaks for dinner and started cooking them. Pete stayed in the kitchen and prepared a couple of salads. He told her all about his imaginary promotion, continuing to refill her wine without drinking much of his own. At one point, he secretly poured his wine down the sink. The last thing he wanted was to get pulled over for drunk driving. Sylvia shared his joy, and they chatted about the future throughout dinner. He made sure there was enough wine left in the bottle for 2 glasses when she went to shower. Now comes the hard part. He slipped into the bedroom carrying the last glasses of wine. Her glass was now stirred. The clothes were again in neat rows. Wearing latex gloves, he grabbed her phone and sent a quick message to G. "Urgently, meet me in the Rosebush parking lot at 7 Park under the lights. Do not answer that." As soon as the message was sent, he deleted it. Then sent another message to her regular taxi company. "Sorry, I need to cancel my order for today." Finally, still wearing gloves, he took 2 pairs of her sexiest panties and a pair of stockings from her lingerie drawer and placed them in a plastic bag. Sylvia stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a fluffy towel. "Help me finish this before you go," he said. She took the glass and giggled. "You're going to get me drunk, you naughty man." "Fine, you'll still take a taxi. This will warm you up for any ladies' men in Emilio." "No way. Even if someone hits me up, the girls won't let me down. We look out for each other." She took a generous sip. "Then maybe this will warm you up enough to try that special sex when you get home." "Ha, you're not giving up, right?" "Of course, one day I might get lucky." "Maybe you'll get lucky." She looked rosy from the shower and wine. Pete engaged her in a discussion about where they could go on vacation, now that he was making more money. She started nodding off. He poured the rest of his wine into her glass. "Finish it, Sylv." She drained the glass, and Pete went into the kitchen where he washed both glasses. He then returned to his computer. He turned from his affair as she came downstairs. "Are you okay? You look a little tired." "I was really tired for some reason. Doesn't matter. I'll perk up when I get to the wine bar." "You have 10 more minutes. Would you like another drink? We still have some Baileys left. You love him." "Not good." Pete poured a glass and handed it to her. She took it, but looked confused. "I said not good." "Oh, sorry. I thought you said what you wanted. It doesn't matter. Drink it anyway. It's cream. It will go bad if you don't drink it. You know I can't stand it." She drank. 5 minutes later, she complained that her taxi was still not there, slightly slurring her tongue. "Give me your phone number, and I'll call them and find out what's going on." "But..." "What? I can't see your phone?" "No, yes, of course." She took it out of her purse and handed it to Pete. He scrolled through and pretended to make a call. "They apologize. Double booking and loss of your number." Should be here in a few minutes. Fine. He took out a bag of her underwear, carried it to her car, and placed it on the passenger seat. The time was critical. He needs Sylvia to pass out very soon. But when she returned to the living room, she was already unconscious. Perfect. Latex gloves are in place and a bottle of Bailey's, although the police are unlikely to take prints. He poured a glass and brought it to her lips. Come on, Sylv. The taxi will be here soon. This will help you wake up. It's coffee. She drank, still sleeping more or less. A couple of minutes later, Pete carried her to the car, not forgetting her purse, where he strapped her in the back seat right behind the driver's seat. He pressed the Bailey's bottle into her right hand so that it would leave imprints on it. Then he threw it on the floor of the passenger seat, where it spilled. Finally, he put on a long wig and drove to the Rosebush parking lot. He parked to the side, opposite the only light. Again he had to wait, but only a few minutes. Keith arrived as instructed at 6:55 a.m. in a Mercedes-Benz. At first he just sat there, so Pete flashed his headlights. Keith was halfway out when Sylvia's car slid forward, pinning him against the Mercedes. It was a perfect blow, almost gentle. His hand was pinned to the car and was badly injured when the driver's door slammed shut. He was pinned down and barely had time to scream. Pete pulled away and walked out. Keith was now lying on the ground and Pete was standing over him. He was dying. "You won't use that hand to touch women's butts anymore," he muttered. He took Keith's phone, found her message, and deleted it. Then he sent a new message. The phone beeped in her purse. "Meet me in the Rosebush parking lot, but I won't change my mind. I will never sleep with you again. I'll bring the laundry you left at my house." Pete now moved Sylvia into the driver's seat, buckled her in, and placed her hands on the steering wheel. Finally, he took out the underwear, which he placed on the passenger seat of the Mercedes. So what will the police find? A married woman who has just been abandoned by her lover. She got drunk and attacked him in a rage. She fastened her seatbelt and was practically unhurt. They'll test her for alcohol, but probably not for substances. If they check, they will only find her regular sleeping pills. As a result, she will receive a prison sentence for grievous bodily harm. No one would be surprised if he divorced her while she sat, and she would be unlikely to resist the settlement. Well, he might have believed that she had run over him, although she will deny it. But hopefully he will learn his lesson. Pete straightened his wig and went home to watch TV and drink a few bottles of beer. Anyone passing by could see a slender, long-haired woman leaving the parking lot. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click